Welcome in, everybody, to post-game coverage of the Browns beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-19 in one of the more memorable games of the
Uh-oh. No, I'm muted. What is going on? This is crazy. This is ridiculous.
Okay,
Goodness
I can hear you.
gracious. Yeah,
What
this
are we,
thing
the
is
Browns
turned up.
secondary?
This is embarrassing. Can we restart this, guys? Can it's
No.
11. It's past our bedtime.
No.
What are we
we're
doing out
we're
here?
3-8 football team. We're not restarting anything.
All right. We are not going to do that. I agree. It's 24-19. Browns winner. What a game. It is one of the more wild football games I've seen in a long time. I mean, you don't often get snow to the level that the second half contributed snow to that game. And as a part of that snow, have like teams still moving the football at a pretty ridiculous rate in the second half. As we'll bring Jordan Zerman in, and Andrew can join back whenever his mic, like we need to test his microphone, but we'll try to get that going again. This is Browns Film Breakdown After Dark. So anyway, here we are. We have a pretty wild Cleveland Browns win here, and I want to talk to you guys all about it. I mean, I'll throw it to you too, Peter. You can jump in, Jordan, whenever you want to. I mean, we're looking at a situation where these guys go up 18-6, you know, kind of put together some drives in the third quarter, you know, put it into, you know, a little bit of overdrive there into the fourth quarter. You get to 18-6, and then things start to unravel a little bit, come uneasy. 19-18 out of nowhere. Is a bit of a roller coaster that they figure out how to get this thing done. But I want to throw certainly it over to you, Peter. You could talk first about, I mean, just showing up and competing in this game the way they competed, I thought was pretty meaningful. And that above all else, the win is awesome. But above all else, they competed their butt off and, you know, found themselves on the right side of this when they're both sides of the football are competing really, really hard.
It's just nice to see this team have us caring and nervous and in our feelings in the fourth quarter, even if they're playing spoiler, especially after what happened coming out of the bye week last week. And they're not a perfect team, and I have plenty of unsubstantiated opinions about the defense, specifically the secondary, but it just feels good to beat Pittsburgh. And that's what you come here for, is that kind of detailed analysis. Is Steelers suck, and I cannot wait to bet against them in the first round of the playoffs. They are definitely fraudulent, and the Browns deserve this win. And it's nice to care in a season where we've had literally few times to be rewarded with such caring.
I would agree. Andrew, we're going to test you again.
How do I sound?
Oh, he's back.
Beautiful.
A little better, yeah.
A little better?
No, you sound way better.
Oh, great.
What are you talking about?
Okay, super. Yeah, sorry about that, fellas. I'm so excited to be here that I did something to my microphone. I got too excited. I was high five. There's nobody here watching the game with me, so I was high fiving the microphone and my computer and screwed some things up. So it's good to be with everybody. Peter talking about what it means to win these games over the Steelers. It's always important, right? It's never there's never a game against the Steelers where you're like, it's fine, I don't care. And especially when it gets close like this, it gets late like this, and there's emotions on both sides. You saw that throughout the game. Guys were getting after it. George Pickens looks like he took Greg Newsome for a walk at the end of the game. There was intensity in this one, and so it makes the overall feeling of the game that much more important, even though it is a Browns team that feels like their season is over. So a big win, I think, for the Browns, and where, I mean, the season's not headed anywhere, but where they're headed as a franchise, it's still a statement to win these games. They have a chance to have a pretty strong divisional record. They lost to the Bengals, but they have 3 games left in the division, and I don't see why they can't find a way to win I guess they've had all 3 of their home games, but I don't see why they can't find a way to win another one of them somewhere along the way and get to maybe 4-2. So I think some really strong accomplishments by the Browns tonight. And I guess I would just say, as a starter, a game again, a lot like the Ravens game, where you start to think about what Jameis Winston could be for this team down the road, right, Jake?
Certainly do. I mean, it's like just gritty play after gritty play. And yeah, and he had some he wanted back, the ball to Elijah Moore that sails a little bit outside, and he has the fumble where he doesn't see it. He's a couple plays, but like scrambling, keeping his eyes up, finding people. I think a couple times his receivers even let him down. I think there were some moments of that, but like again, like I said, when we reeled the show in, like stat line wise, you're talking 18 of 27 for 219 in that weather, considering what you're looking at, your left tackle situation is, and all the elements that go into getting this offense moving in a good direction. It's a hell of a performance. And honestly, Russell Wilson's 21 of 28 for 270, another really good performance. We'll get into the details of that. But I thought it was, for the conditions you're talking about, where it was like, I know, Jordan, you tweeted it out, it's a snow globe. There were like, this was as ugly as it gets from a quarterback's perspective to try, especially like the Steelers defenders are kind of like hidden in their white jerseys if you can't see it was kind of crazy. So I was pleased with Jameis. I thought it was just a really strong overall game for him, especially finding some of those middle of the field, late in the snap type of answers that they needed. And we'll get to more of these guys, but Jerry Jeudy, just a phenomenal performance.
I was going to say, well, one, to the snow globe comment, they are showing on the post game, they were just showing like the highlights and the difference in how the field and things look in the first quarter when it wasn't really snowing and you can see everything, and then like as they progress through the game, the difference in how the field looks is absolutely insane. So yeah, that was wild. I don't think anybody expected it to snow that hard today. Had my mom text me weather reports all night. That's how you know it's real. I think, yeah, Jerry Jeudy showed up. We were all talking about that during a couple of plays where that Jordan Akins, when he dropped that pass, when Njoku dropped that touchdown, wide open touchdown in the end zone, like we were like, Jerry Jeudy came out and showed up today in tough elements for a wide receiver, and that's awesome. And also, for me, it's just, we've now had a few of these with Jameis where, man, it's just nice to like have a normal football game in a sense. Like, yes, there was the interception that felt a bit like a backbreaker, the fumble when your lead is slipping away, those very Brownsy things that you feel. But at the same time, like that 3rd and 7 to Jerry Jeudy, to just be able to complete that and just be able to exhale and move on. Like we as a fan base, I think, for much of this season have just not had normal average quarterback play. And so when you get it, it doesn't even have to be great. It doesn't even have to be substantial. It can just be normal and average. And I think like you see there's frustrations in it because you see what maybe this team could have looked like had they just gotten straight up average quarterback play all season long. They're in these games. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I just would say so, though, like the one thing that I take solace in, Jordan, is like it seems like from the reporting that we heard before the game with Schefter and Breer, especially Breer, that like they're not going to be capitulating to what Winston wants anymore. So at least it seems like if that's coming from the organization, that they are publicly saying we are going to turn the page on just like getting rid of Joe Flacco, of trying to install an offense that supports him, because tonight was just Ken Dorsey running the Stefanski offense that we've seen for the last 4 years, and that's pretty much what it's been as well. So I take a little bit of comfort in the fact that like we're not going to go back to like let's hope that Jameis Winston knows how to read a defense ever again. But I'm trying to put a little bit of a lipstick on a pig of we lost the first 6 weeks of the season. Like losing to the entire NFC East is pretty unforgivable, I would say.
I mean, I think it's what the expectations were and what we've kind of had to trudge through does make it frustrating when you see games like this, and when you see games like a game against the Ravens where they're taking on a really good divisional opponent and they're beating them. And so I think because to Andrew's point, like this doesn't make the season any sort of better. I mean, beating the Steelers always feels good, but it does just give you a reminder of, okay, maybe Kevin Stefanski hasn't like just lost the ability to coach. Maybe this team hasn't just all of a sudden lost the ability to look like a a good football team with the talent that they have. So I think it's nice to get a reminder of that. It's nice to, like you guys said, care about a football game into a fourth quarter and like get hyped up about a football game against a division opponent. So it was fun tonight, man. It was fun tonight, and we haven't had enough of those this year, so it's nice to get one.
So the other big thing that comes up with a game like this that, as Jordan mentioned, starts off like a pretty normal November evening and ends happening literally inside of a snow globe. We got to talk dome, people. We got to talk dome.
We got to talk dome.
We have to. We simply must, because this is a magical football moment, and there's not really another way to say it. You don't get this indoors, and it was awful in a lot of ways. And watching Jameis Winston try and squint through the snow to throw the ball when the Browns decided on the drive that ended in an interception, they decided they didn't want to run the ball ever again and threw the ball until Jameis Winston completed one to the Steelers. It was hard to watch at times because of the elements, but at the same time, it makes for an incredibly engaging spectacle in a way that I personally will never not want to see. There's not a game between any two NFL teams and a lot of college teams, if the weather does that I'm not like, well, I guess, yeah, I'm doing this for the next 2 hours now. It makes the sport better, and it made tonight better in a tangible way that I will absolutely miss when they are inside in Brook Park.
I, for one, will have the minority opinion on this topic. I was just happy I wasn't there. I wouldn't have wanted to be in that. It's cool. I agree with the sentiments that, like, hey, it's cool. It looks like football that we grew up watching a little bit, and it's a spectacle. It's pretty, but I just wouldn't want to have been there. I look forward to a dome, but I'm like a minority on that.
Compromise. What if we do fake snow, Andrew, in the dome? Harry Potter style, like when they're in the Great Hall and they've got the snow kind of like.
I absolutely could see Jimmy Haslam doing that with like some sort of discount foam that it turns out gives everybody.
Just go to Boston Mills and Brandywine and take one of their snow machines.
That is, it's asbestos that's raining down.
Right, it's like some sort of petroleum product that he's managed to get like Pilot Flying J to sell to the Browns. And
I'm in the middle here, because as I'm sitting on my couch inside of my apartment at a nice 70 degrees, I'm like, man, that looks so sick, but I'm like, I'm not there. And I will never forget, obviously, like I was at that Bills Browns game in 2007, whatever year that was, when there was a blizzard, and I'll never forget, I turned down one of the concourses and the wind was blowing so hard that it literally blew a person over, like they fell because the wind was blowing so hard. I remember towards the end of that game, I was like, I don't think I'm having fun. I think I would like to be inside. So I think we've all probably experienced a game in the cold at Cleveland Brown Stadium. I'm sorry, Huntington Bank Stadium.
You don't have to
Field, Huntington Field.
No, I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Peter.
Haven't signed any paperwork.
Yeah, you're right.
You can say whatever you want.
So I think we've experienced it. I think it always, in theory, is really cool. I will say Amazon Prime gives you the option to watch the sort of next-gen broadcast where you're basically watching the Skycam. And at one point, I was like, this is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen, even though I can't even see where the football is going from this angle, and I might have to go back to the regular broadcast. But yeah, man, I think it is special. I think it gets overblown how many games cold weather teams actually play in cold weather. Like, this is really the first game of the entire Brown season that they've had elements like this. So I definitely will miss it. I think I lean towards, I would rather them continue to play outside. But I also know that I am saying all these things, having not lived in Cleveland in 5 years and not gone to a freezing cold Browns game probably since I was like early college. So I also understand that. So I'm right there in the middle.
Speaking of special, though, we got to give myself a shout out here.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, yeah. It's time for the self shout out segment.
Is this sponsored? Is this a sponsored segment, Jake, or no?
Am I allowed to make my joke here?
Okay.
Sorry,
go
ahead.
Go ahead, Jake.
So the bets in the game day newsletter have been so bad that it's actually becoming funny. So tonight's bets, I've been just like, I've gotten away from parlays because they've been so wrong for so long now that I'm just doing like things I like to pick from. So we had Elijah Moore over 3.5 receptions. Getting force-fed receptions. He had 3.
Yep.
Nick Chubb under 52.5 rushing yards because not playing enough snaps. He had 59. And George Pickens over 56 yards, 7 of his last 10, 48. I just think that is an impressive amount of fading that you guys should be doing on every single newsletter is giving you the opposite bet to take. Just take whatever Jake puts in there. Just go the other way. And that's the way you'll win some money. I just want to put that out there.
It's the only part of the newsletter that's wrong too. Like we'll tell you what channel it's on. Yeah. The weather forecasts are generally pretty good. The records, I think, are correct. We're giving you the right information about who's won what against it. That's the only part of it where we're just giving you blatantly incorrect information. So I think we got to defend ourselves there too. The other part that I want to just shout out here is not just the stadium and the weather, but also the fans. And Herb Street did a great job of covering this during the game. And it's, I guess, the one hidden benefit of Kirk Herbstreit doing NFL games is that he's an Ohio guy. And he was really loving up Browns fans. And I have to say, Jake, we talked about this in the game day preview. I thought it was going to be like 90% Steelers fans.
Nope.
And Browns fans really showed out, not only being there, but staying there and staying through the weather to like really witness something special. It was really, really cool. And the point at which I was getting the most emotional about it, they were talking about it as the Browns had the ball. And then Winston threw a pick, and I was like, "Oh, we're definitely going to lose this game."
yeah.
But it worked out, and hats off to every Browns fan that said, "Hey, it's a Thursday in November, and they're 2-8, but I'm going to go down to the lakefront and freeze my ass off and see them get a victory." So I mean,
also, truly. Like also one of those games that felt like last year, where you're at the end of this 100%. Game, and you're like, "They won." It's a weird score, 24-19, and you're like, they won. I don't really doesn't make a ton of sense because they could have folded like a couple different times, especially when they went down 19-18 and Grant Delpit decided to celebrate the 2-point conversion fail. I was ready to throw my computer.
I almost punched a hole. I almost punched a hole in the wall.
Oh my God, the audacity
we'll get to that.
Of
I think Grant knew what he was doing with that one. But anyway, at that moment, you would think that they would fold, right? That they would pack it up and call it a day. But give them credit, and this is a little bit of why you like Kevin and you like what they did last year. This is like a reminder of, they'll do this. They'll have these performances. And
my God. I'm sorry, Jake.
What's up?
Sorry, just to briefly cut you off. Jameis, I don't know if anybody has the post game on.
I'm
Jameis
watching
Winston
this right now.
Is diving into the snow with the entire crew. He did a face first snow angel where his head was down, not on his back. He did it with his head down. Okay, so anyway, he's having the time of his life out there, and I'm so happy for him. So shout out Jameis.
Go ahead.
He gives speeches pregame or when he talks to people pregame. He talks like someone who's like generating an AI song or something. Like he's saying like 80% of the correct things, and then like 20% of what he says, you're like, did you confuse where you are right now, or did you see? You mentioned Jesus twice in the same sentence, but you used it in different ways. He's really a delight. And also, I would say him and Flacco basically prove out that vibes kind of matter a little bit here. Like, I don't know how you can DePodesta moneyball this thing over and over again and say that vibes don't matter a bit. I mean, it also helps that you can, like, hit an out pattern, but I digress.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a fun quote from Kevin, who doesn't do this very often, so I just wanted to read it. He asked about Nick, how Nick played tonight, and he said, "He's my favorite player on the team. You can tell everyone else I said that." Nick does the right thing all
there's
the
some
time.
Personality.
Yeah, he said he does the right thing all the time, and to see what he's gone through to come back, he's a special player. I just think that's funny. He also said that he has a favorite kid too, but she isn't here right now. So it's just a little, again, you win these games, and you saw more of it last year because they won 11 of these things. Like, he's dry. The humor is dry, but he's funny and he can be great. It's just this year has gone so sideways. But again, this is like a celebration of tonight. They did the thing, man. I think all the elements of what we loved last year were back on display this year or today, and that was fun.
Yeah. I just wanted to Andrew's point too about the crowd. I mean, this would have been the most classic stadium is 75% full of Steelers fans waving 100%. Their towels. Like, it was set up for that. I just assumed the minute I turned it on that it was going to sound like a Steelers home game. I'm not sure if I've, like, because of what their record is, because of the weather, like, there's been past seasons where it's not like this. Like, you can just automatically, like, your tickets are getting sold to Steelers fans. I was legitimately shocked to see not only it like was full, but full of Browns fans. That really like was it incredible. And then I think, Nick Chubb scoring 2 touchdowns against the team that he suffered his serious injury against, like just really cool stuff tonight that we just haven't had a lot of chances to experience. And like between the crowd, the weather, and the Chubb thing, I think just like, yeah, it was a special night, man. In a season that has been really tough, it was a really special night. So yeah, I think to Andrew's point, that was really cool that they showed up in a game where like they did not have to. Like the Browns fan had no obligation to be at that game and support what this season has been.
Most importantly, though, I want to shout out Arthur Smith for letting Justin Fields throw the ball on 3rd and 2 with 3 minutes and 34 seconds left, because none of this happens without truly some of the most befuddling play calling and clock management there by someone who has consistently shown themselves to be middling at best. So big shouts to him, the number 1 Browns fan, Arthur Smith, and that clock management.
Yeah, Steelers have been throwing moon balls up the sidelines for what feels like a decade now. It's kind of funny. It's I think they're practicing it at this point. It's not even because they've had different OCs come through that place. It's like we are going to have our quarterbacks throw it as high as they possibly can. I'm talking like I want this thing out of the stadium and coming back down. It just feels like late Ben, the Duck Hodges nonsense, like the Mason Rudolph and Kenny Two Gloves, like they've been doing these. Just I've never seen a team throw more fades. It's actually kind of crazy. It's like watching a JV football game where they're like, "Hey, just lob it up. Let's just see what happens." They do it at such a high clip. But anyway, stats from this game that matter that I think are like, okay, both teams had 17 first downs. The Browns went 1 of 10 on 3rd down. Pittsburgh goes 7 of 16. That's crazy to win that game and go 1 out of 10. Now, to the Browns' credit, they were better on early downs, and they did have a couple, I think 2 or 3 of those like 2nd and 1 quarterback sneaks, because they're like, we're not even going to mess with getting to 3rd and 1 if this is the case. Like, we just need to get this first down when we can get it. Even though all the data says 2nd and 1 is the best time to do play action and take shots downfield, they're like, nah, we're quarterback sneak. We're going to get the first down just so we can put that on our belt. So the Browns are outgained 368 to 304. Pittsburgh runs for 120 to the Browns 85. Penalties are kind of the same, but the Browns turned it over 3 times to Pittsburgh's 1. And then the time of possession, Pittsburgh had it 35 minutes to the Browns 24. The obvious difference here is that the Browns on 4th down made a bunch of plays and got the football back. That doesn't show up in a turnover, but I there are 2 I know of. There might have been a 3rd I'm blanking on, but certainly a huge thing. And I also thought Mike Tomlin was rough at the end of the half with timeout usage. And also some of the stuff there at the end of the game, like I would have put the Browns in 4th and 2. I would not have given them a 3rd down play. No, thank you. The kicking
even after
wasn't
6 tries to get it right, he got it wrong somehow.
Yeah, can we briefly talk about this, because not like any of you guys are like Mike Pereira out here, but like he declined it. I feel like he declined it. The ref went over and said, "Are you sure?" Like Tomlin said, "Yeah," and then all of the sudden, they're like, just kidding. One more try. I'll ask you one more time. Are you sure? And he said, no, we accept. I was so confused about how many chances you have as a head coach to tell a ref that you actually want to accept. I was just baffled by that whole thing. Yeah. But to Jake's point, I was actually surprised that they did accept. I would have put him in 4th and 2 as well with those conditions.
100%. Yeah. Shout out to Brad Allen, the awful official of this game.
Going back and just
giving Mike Tomlin those squinty eyes. You sure about that? Because they changed like 3 times. I thought he changed his mind. It was wild.
Are you saying yes? Or are you saying no?
Yeah.
And then followed by the timeout. I thought fans were going to start pelting him with snowballs, so he escaped unscathed.
All right, so big picture here, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but you zoom out to what this has looked like post Watson, and you're talking about a 4-game sample now, 2-2, with wins over the Ravens and the Steelers, losses to the Chargers and the Saints. I know that 3 of the 4 games have been at home. Jameis Winston has, I think, I would say, played well in 3 of the 4 games. I think the Chargers game was a pretty rough one for him, but I think even with the turnover tonight, or I guess the 2 turnovers, the one on the strip fumble, you'd still, I think, take his performance considering the elements tonight and a good Steelers defense. It makes the offense look more functional, although I still don't think the offense looks what anybody would call like really good, right? It's still not explosive, really. Which I think is more a function just of the talent. And I think the defense feels very uneven in a way that feels disconnected from the offense changing from being hopeless to being middle of the road. So you're starting now to look at what this could be. There's 6 more games in this season. There's enough of a scope here that it looks like to me, Jake, Kevin keeps his job. Jameis potentially puts enough together that he is the presumptive starting quarterback going into next year. If they're a 500 team through his set of games, it ends up being 10 games overall. If they're 5-5 with the schedule they've got and divisional wins, that feels like where this is headed, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at the draft and you don't really feel good about who's at the top. I mean, we're way out in front of our skis on this, but I don't feel like there's an answer just sitting there, right? It could work itself out over the next 2, 3, 4 months, but that doesn't feel like there again. If you lose out the rest of these games, because the Browns, we talked about this on the pregame show, that the Browns have the highest odds to have the first overall pick. I don't know if that comes to fruition. They play like tonight. They keep battling. They're going to win 4 or 5 games, right? Who knows? Who knows where this goes? But anyway, the logical thought is if Jameis continues to play well, Jameis continues to be the presence that is clearly enjoyed by people in that building and all of that, then you have an opportunity to have him bridge it, start, and continue to roll this forward. And we can't ignore what was said before the game. Important NFL figures are kind of on saying, unless something catastrophic happens, and tonight was a good start on the non-catastrophic element, that they're going to, Kevin's going to be back. Some stuff about Andrew Berry there too, but for the most part, you gather that these guys are going to get another year. And unless, like I said, they could lose every game from here on out, maybe we're swinging a different tune at the end of the season. But tonight was a great start in they'll fight for this still. Unit, because what we have talked about leading into what do we care about the rest of the year? Well, I want them to care. Andrew wrote about it. We have talked about it. They can't just accept losing. Yeah, they might lose these games because they're outclassed, but they can't just accept losing. I thought coming out of the bye was not a great start in that direction. This was a complete opposite move of that direction. So let's see what the sample size as it grows. To this point, how do we feel about it if we're projecting forward? I mean, Jameis is playing good enough and has some real moments of great football, and he's an infectious personality, and I think he does well for the people around him. And it's not the same it's different than Flacco, right? Flacco got respect because Joe had done amazing things in the NFL, and that Joe cool element brought guys into hey man, I believe in that dude no matter what, even if I shouldn't because he's 40 or whatever. That happened. Jameis is more I'll play for him because he'll risk it all for us. He will do these things. He'll get us going. He's a motivating leader, and that is a different type, but they play has been very well documented, a very similar game. They'll rip it into some windows. They'll try to get out of congested pockets to find somebody late, and that is a functionable quarterback in the NFL. So you like that in your back pocket. If there's a way to keep that relationship alive, you are not forced to be well, we're picking third, and we don't really have an answer at quarterback. So let's take Cam Ward here and let's just make an irrational decision on this because we need to find a guy. You can the bigger than anything else is that the Browns' next long-term choice at quarterback needs to be a clean choice that they all believe in, that there is zero hesitance and belief. And if you can get Jameis to provide more of what he did tonight in the Saints game and back to the Ravens game, you have a chance to still win games while figuring that out and not having to be in a panicked, rushed state that obviously causes you to make maybe that decision that ends up ultimately costing everybody their job. So I just, it's above all else for Jameis, it's cool, man. He just wanted to start ball games and he was kind of stuck in New Orleans playing that merry-go-round. And he came here and, I think there's been very logical arguments that we have all made at times about, hey, he should be out there earlier than this, but he's out there. He's having fun. He is completely, and I had to explain this to my wife earlier. He was I'm there's a time when Jameis wasn't loved. There was a time in his life where he was making some choices that led him down to some suspensions in college and the NFL. And he has turned it around. He's loved by people and a great story of redemption. And it's just cool. It's cool. It's happening in Cleveland. And I do hope that I'm not asking for him to be Geno Smith. I think that's a leap. Geno's turned into what you rarely ever find. But who's to say the guy with this much talent getting linked up with people who see the right things in him and find ways to kind of harness the bad and bring in the good, right? Harness bad, bring good, is like he can't do that. I mean, and I think that there are some moments to be had here, and he's been fun, and he's doing well, and I hope that there's a relationship they can keep with him that keeps everything kind of moving in a forward direction, because offensively, the data will tell us that too, guys. They have been significantly better since his arrival. So do with that what you will.
Yeah, that throw he had to Jerry Jeudy, I mean, over the outstretched hand on the move in the snow to even like see that. I mean, yeah, like you obviously see why he has tantalized people for a really long time, because he makes throws like that, and then a few plays later he overthrows or just doesn't have the right kind of communication on where he thought Elijah Moore was going. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like he is the perfect sort of quote unquote bridge quarterback if they are not interested in anyone in this draft, or feel comfortable enough to come to a consensus on any of the top quarterbacks in this draft. And if like we've said this whole time, and coming into the season when we said, if Deshaun Watson can play average football, which he obviously did not, but like if they have a quarterback that can play average football to above average football, they can do some things with the roster that they have. And it gives them time to Jake's point, which I think is so important, to come to a consensus on whoever it is going to be that's going to, lead this team next to the quarterback position, because we see what happens when you don't have the right person playing quarterback.
And I think that like you've seen some people publicly be like, well, trade for Kirk Cousins, or Aaron Rodgers is maybe going to get cut from the Jets and you could try to get a year out of him. Like my thing is, you don't have to force that stuff now.
Yeah.
Like with what is Jameis is providing in a collective, not just on the field, but the collective of what he's been for them, you now don't have to like rush into this. They have to trade for or figure out some way to sign Sam Darnold or something. Like this is the part that I know we've been searching for this, and we've talked through like, hey, I'd be pumped about Mike Hall or DeJuan Jones getting more left tackle snaps, or Cedric Tillman. I hope he's feeling. He took a nasty shot on that throw. Hope he's okay. But like, this is like the thing for me is, okay, so Jameis is going to do this. Let's see him finish the year well. That's a very intriguing storyline that is worth, like, if he can finish the year at this level and be this figure for them, it changes a lot of the offseason and the scope of how they kind of keep this thing moving down the line, dealing with the saddlebags of Deshaun Watson's contract.
I'd say one more thing there, Jake, too, which is the idea of trading for like a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers is a presumption built on the idea that, or it's an idea built on the presumption, I should say, that the Browns are a quarterback away. But I don't think this season has shown us that, because they're uneven in a lot of different areas of the team. And so, Jordan, you said like our sort of preseason mantra was give me average quarterback play with the defense and the running game, and you can get to 10, 11 wins. I don't know that that's true right now.
On top of giving away assets that you don't have enough of as it is.
Exactly.
So are we also just sure Aaron Rodgers and Cousins are not worse than Winston?
That's kind of the point. That's what we're paying attention to, for sure.
I think that the overall, my point in talking about Winston and the Browns maybe being a 500 team through the back half of the year is essentially to say that this is more like what it would have looked like with an average Watson, to Jordan's point. And I think my point is it's better. Nobody's disagreeing that it's better, but it's not. They're not all of a sudden a winning football team. And I think there are some questions then as you go into the offseason about what else needs fixed beyond quarterback. And if you can find a relatively affordable option at quarterback that's already in the building, like Jameis, does that allow you to invest that first-round pick in a wide receiver or a tackle? You can go a few different directions with your cap space and your draft picks, because you found a short-term quarterback solution without, as Jake just said, throwing more assets at the quarterback position.
Could you hire a shaman who takes Jim Schwartz on a extended sojourn in the offseason and shows him how to mix in zone coverages?
Thought he did better with that tonight, to be honest, from the first watch, from the eye in the sky. I think that I'm ready to end the Greg Newsome experience. I can't keep watching it, man.
Well, George Pickens tried. George Pickens tried at the end of the game. So
Herb Street also, that was a knock against him when he was like,
for.
And he was like, and Newsom's been great in coverage. I was like, you have not looked
Oh
at this
my
dude
God.
since he was like a sophomore.
Do we want to briefly just touch on that weird story that Kirk Herbstreit told about how Mike Vrabel was screaming at his kindergartners like the same way he screams at the Browns players? I was like,
That
I'm
means he's gonna
sorry.
be a good NFL coach.
That means he's a great coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, I think your point is very fair. They clearly, I mean, as we're talking about the secondary, I think that's been a pretty huge disappointment from a lot of guys this season. Guys that we thought were sort of on the graph one way, and there's been a lot of regression there. I think the other thing I would say is that I do think that the stuff that happened with Deshaun this season and how poorly he played, I do think that had a trickle-down effect to the entire team. I think it had a trickle-down effect to Amari Cooper, who literally said, I haven't been happy after a win in so long. And you never know. Like, listen, like guys are in new situations. It's all, it's all roses and all of that. But like, I do think because of how badly it went, it affected guys' body language. It affected how hard they were playing, all that stuff. I genuinely believe that. I'm not saying like they don't have things to fix. We just touched on like it is more than just the quarterback. But I do genuinely believe that because of how bad things went, shockingly bad, that it really affected this team everywhere. And I think just to Peter's vibes points, like just having the vibe of Jameis Winston, you saw what happened tonight. Like that dude is launching his body in the air and losing half of his helmet for a 2-8 football team. Like that's stuff that guys are like, let's go. So I both agree, but I also think that because, just how shockingly bad this season went, it just affected everything up to this point.
Us as fans too, it's like you can't tell me like I'm jumping off my couch here for a 2-8 team, and the vibe is totally different than watching Watson walk off the field when they don't have the right personnel on and just go sit on the bench and they have to call a timeout and you see Stefanski swearing. It's not about all the other stuff. It's just they have a quarterback who's average, and I would say the larger questions lie in both the defense and the front office who's making the personnel decisions, because I think those are the larger questions. If anyone was to be questioned more thoroughly, no matter what happens for the rest of the year, it has to be Barry and DePodesta, because Newsome, Emerson's regression, every third-round pick they've ever had, there's just so many questions about his drafting and his free agent signings, especially in that secondary, that just make you feel like maybe you're not playing with a full deck anyways. And no matter who the quarterback is, that's the thing too, is I don't know where that culture comes from. We want to be the Ravens. We want to be the Steelers. And I don't know more prevalently if the culture comes from someone like Stefanski in, empowering the players with that culture, or if it's also the people making the decisions on who's here, and just kind of where that leads and what the Browns need to do to kind of find that themselves.
I think a couple things I want to hit on too. Well said there is about tonight, to just kind of like the guy my brain is full of like tonight thoughts, and you guys are having great thoughtful conversations about bigger picture things. But like Myles Garrett's performance with his back again didn't guarantee a win, but he went the direction of like, hey man, I'm better than that dude, and has 3 sacks in the first half and a strip sack, and I thought played the run game very well, was out of his mind. That was cool to see him back that up. I mean, Steelers are 8-3. That matters more, but like some of that stuff does matter. And I said that, I know Andrew, you and I talked about it, man, where I'm like, I'm glad he stands up for himself, because he should. And it's just like I'm watching like 14 different Dick's Sporting Goods commercials with the Watt family. Can we slow that down? Can we?
I was about to say TJ Watt, his biggest presence tonight was on Peloton. So
I think it was Peloton, and
I legit asked a friend I was with tonight, I said, is TJ Watt, like, no, I was like, is he playing? Like, is he on the field? Like, I couldn't see in the snow, but like, I also was like unsure. So
yeah,
Jack Conklin, man.
He got
Jack Conklin.
He got Conklin. Yes, he did.
He got conked, dude. Also, is this the last? Did we see the last of Jed Wills in a Browns jersey? Do we think?
It's not. The evidence hasn't been good for a while on that. I mean, I don't know how you can continue to give him chances week after week.
Can you put someone on the IR because of multiple press conferences? Does media availability land you on the IR? Is that?
Yeah. It would be labeled illness or something of the sort. But Other things tonight. How about that Blake Whiteheart catch? About as random a big play from a no-name guy as I've seen in a while. Like, I ironically was watching the 22 because the Browns and Steelers have an extensive Cleveland Thursday night game history. They played in 22 and 2019 in the obvious infamous Myles Garrett helmet swing game. In the 19 game, there was a Steven Carlson random late touchdown where he climbed the back of a defender to make it. And Whiteheart comes up and plays in this game because Jeff Swaim it was inactive for this one. And I was thankful to not have to endure that. But that's a moment that stood out because that catch was huge. I believe that was on the drive to make it to 18, if I recall correctly. Just about as unexpected a play as it gets. So I thought that was huge. I thought Myles was huge. And then again, I know we hit on it earlier, but just like 6 targets and 6 catches for 85 yards. Like that was a leading receiver game from Jerry Jeudy. That was hey, I'm the best receiver on the field on either side type of performance from him. Just difficult catches down low, below his like knees on some of those, also going up and getting them in the air. And a guy who's like, he's an SEC guy. Like this is not normal elements. I know he's played in Denver and he's been around it, but like this is like he just looked comfortable and he looked good out there. And if I'm gonna have ill will towards guys in the secondary not making enough plays or pulling mouthpieces off helmets and stuff like that, then I just thought some guys really were nails when they needed to be nails, and he was one of them. So I just want to circle back and give him some real credit as well. I don't know if you guys have any other guys from this game that stood out to you worth shouting out.
I see a lot of people in chat saying Mohamed Diabate, and I definitely would second that one. I think probably his most impressive game. It's the Steelers and the way they run the ball with Najee Harris is so slow that if you're a fast linebacker, you can catch him behind the line of scrimmage a few times. So I think that's a really good shout out. Just in terms of they need something at linebacker. Getting Hicks back is big, but something at that other spot. And I think Devin Bush had a few nice moments, which is that's an inversion of an old trope. We watch Browns players go to Pittsburgh and have good careers, and here's Devin Bush, a Steelers first-round pick, having a good game against the Steelers. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that there was some stuff on defense. I mean, again, I know, Jake, you're talking about tonight. I keep making the bigger picture points. I just am so interested to see what happens with this defense down the stretch and then in the offseason, because it feels a little bit to me like when it became clear that Joe Woods didn't quite have the juice to make the defense really, really good consistently. But obviously Joe Woods never did anything like what the Browns did last year. So it's hard to say that, but I don't know. It feels like the book is out on Schwartz. And to your point, Jake, even when they do adjust, then they are going to have a bust or two. And so you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And the overall feeling is just that you can't rely on them. There was, for my part, a lot of frustration to be up 18-6 in a snow game and all of a sudden be down by 1. It felt like 2 minutes later.
Right. Yeah, no, the first drive was the frustrating one because it was Justin Fields breaking a long run and the similar. I know we had asked if Taysom Hill was out there and we didn't even recognize. That's on us, Andrew. We really let the group down. We forgot to tell them in our pod that they do have Justin Fields who they can bring in to be Taysom Hill. We should have
arguably a better Taysom Hill.
Oh, dang. We should have told them. But that one's frustrating. The other one was a short field, whatever. The fumble happens. But I just am like, they just don't make enough plays in the secondary, really. I understand they handled some of the fade balls well. George Pickens after the game in the locker room said the weather conditions played a huge part in today's game. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are a good team at all. So I think Pickens seems like a really even-keeled, rational fella.
Shades of Chase Claypool. Browns is the Browns.
Right. Yes, exactly right. But like the Calvin Austin 2 chunk catches, the second touchdown was on Newsome. The first 46-yarder was on Delpit. They need to be better. And for like this group has been around long enough. We're talking like 5 years together for the most part. Thornhill's newer-ish. But like there's enough core parts of this that they shouldn't have these issues, not to this level, to what they believe they are as a team. And that part is really disappointing to me. So, there are big decisions to be made about some of those guys back there that'll work itself out. But I continue to be like, Greg Newsome is kind of the same with Jed Wills. They both had some pretty okay to good rookie seasons, and they've just never gotten better from there. It's just
That's
been
what
a
makes me
plateau
worried
to
about
a
Emerson
decline.
too.
Yeah, this is a step in the wrong direction. His is a little later. It's a year 3 thing for him, but I am to the point, and Emerson was fine tonight, but like for the most part, like these guys are expected to be better. And I don't think, other than Denzel, who I think is having an all-pro season, is just the group collectively has not been good enough, and really frustrating to see chunk plays and driving snow that are the result of just people not being covered, just not like landing where you need to land and matching routes the way you need to match them. But on the positive side, I thought on both sides of the football, the Browns owned the line of scrimmage. I know the Steelers ran for more. That's because of the Fields run. That's because of the Russell Wilson scramble yards here and there. They held Najee Harris to 16 carries for 41 yards and a 2.6 mark. Fantastic. And then Jalen Warren had 11 for 45, but that dude's tough to tackle. I still do not understand why they don't play him more. They do a great job of getting him isolated on the outside against DBs trying to tackle him, and his frame, and he's like a bowling ball low to the ground, and like a sort of like Maurice Jones-Drew type of way, is really hard to get to the ground. And I just thought it wasn't that the Browns didn't take care of the line of scrimmage. I just thought he made plays on the outside. But like on the other side, I know again, the Browns only ran roughly, I mean, they ran for 85 yards, but it was a pretty effective, when they did run it, it was effective enough for them. And I also thought they protected really well. The Herbig sack was the only sack. I thought the interior group handled things well. When Jameis stepped up into the pocket, I thought they did a good job of maintaining blocks and giving their quarterback a chance to kind of elude and escape laterally when he stepped up. And obviously they did a great job of bottling up TJ Watt, who was, again, one of the league's preeminent edge threats. And they did a great job there. The Herbig one was really a schematic thing. I just didn't think it wasn't so much like somebody didn't do their job, as just like, I think that it was the right rush style from a wide angle at the right time against the right play action look. So I just would give the Browns offensive line, who we've been really hard on all year, justifiably so, they have had a really good run of like 3 to 4 weeks of pass protection. It's gotten a lot better from what I've watched early in the year. I'll watch this one closely, but the sack data tells us one thing early. And I also just thought Jameis did a pretty good job himself of navigating some tough stretches there, where it's like, okay, it's kind of like we're in the 3-4 second range and you're still got enough time, and he's kind of staying calm and finding people too. So all of it was good. I just think those guys deserve credit. I thought the thing that Cam Hayward said when they came here last year, I think it was last year, he just said they beat our butts up front. They were more physical. And I thought tonight the Browns were more physical at the point of attack.
For sure. I also sorry, Peter.
No, go ahead.
I just also wanted to shout out, speaking of like just physical and just like playing your ass off, after the Cedric Tillman fumble, Jameis Winston runs and makes that tackle, and not like, I don't know how many yards they would have gained on a scoop, but like he ensured that the Steelers did not move any further than where they picked the ball up. It was actually a really great tackle too. Like, again, that's just like the type of stuff you're getting from your quarterback, who's booking it downfield and putting his body on the line to just stop the Steelers from even getting one more yard on the scoop of the fumble after Tillman fumbled. So shout out to Jameis for being physical in that way too.
Going even more basic and big picture, it is also, I think, really satisfying for all of us to see our favorite and probably most in our lifetime iconic Browns player, who was arguably had his knee destroyed on a massively dirty hit last year in week 2, come back and score 2 touchdowns to beat the Steelers. It just is a level of satisfaction that we are often not granted as Browns fans. And there's no real analysis for that, but it is just incredibly it is incredibly satisfying to see him score with 57 seconds left, his second touchdown in the middle of a snow game, to beat the most annoying team in football, or all sports, you could say, all of sport.
I will say, last thing, and I'll shut up for the night. Shout out to the 2 punters, one with a 15-yard average and one with a 29-yard average. Kudos to those fellas for trying to kick it.
Shanks all over the place.
So is there something about snow that makes it harder to kick something?
Well, no, because Bajorquez, it wasn't even snowing yet. That was
right. Okay.
It was green as a fairway.
Interesting.
It was bad. It was really bad.
It's real bad. It's bad when Al Michaels and Kirk are like, "Did something happen?" Yeah. And it's like, nope.
Did the wind move the ball on the drop?
They're like, "Did someone block it?" Oh, nope, just clean. Yeah. So
just kicked it the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Michaels was in good form tonight, I thought.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was
You got a
a
good night.
memorable game all the way around. I think everybody did a great job, except for George Pickens, who I don't like. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's always so much fun to do these when the Browns win. So congrats, everybody, on getting to see a third Browns win of the season. 24-19 over the Steelers. Browns improved to 3-8. The Steelers dropped to 8-3. We will, of course, have full coverage of this game coming up on brownsfilmbreakdown.com over the next few days, including it's going to be an interesting all-22 review, Jake, where half of it's easy to see and half of it is hard to see. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how that affects the analysis, because I'm anytime they showed the wider angle, it was genuinely hard to see where the
Second
ball
half is cooked. All 22 was absolutely cooked.
It's going to be guessing. It's going to be a little bit of guessing. So tune in for that. It'll be fun to see Jake kind of put through his paces a little bit in terms of, a lot of squinting.
A lot of this.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
a lot of that.
A lot of
Get ready
this.
for that. Yep.
A lot of
Okay.
this.
He's warming up the old peepers. So we'll have more of that. Obviously, the Browns are off until Monday night, a week from now. So plenty of time to digest this epic win over the Steelers. And we'll be back to do all of that with you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Peter, to Jordan, and to Jake for being with me. Be well, everybody, and go Browns.